Okay, hello and welcome. I know I don't usually stream on Saturdays because I'm usually busy on Saturdays, but I'm going to be out of town. I'm overnight and I'm not sure exactly when I'll be home. And even if I get home in time for my usual stream, I don't know that I'm going to want to stream at that point. So I decided to go ahead and stream a day early just because I can. There's my notes. Almost forgot those. Hi, Blue. So we are working on Reuben's route, and oh my gosh, we got to smooch Reuben last week. Well, Wednesday. But last stream, we got to smooch Reuben, which is what I've been waiting for. So we're halfway through Reuben's route because it's 14 chapters, if I remember correctly. I haven't even looked at the flowcharts. Yeah, 14 chapters. So we're halfway there. Halfway there. Almost there. So, of course, this is when, the romance starts really heating up and taking off. I grabbed a mechanical pencil with no lead in it. Of course I did. Let's see, does this one have lead? Yes, it does. Can I click it? Yes, I can. Okay, that'll work. Yeah, normally I try not to stream when the videos are premiering on YouTube, but since I'm going to be out of town and I don't know when I'll be home tomorrow, I thought I'd go ahead and stream today. But why are you even watching the video on YouTube? You got to watch it live. Yeah, I made sure to have some lunch before starting this, because of course there's no way I can eat and stream this. So yeah, Reuben is basically working for the police, and we're helping him as a consultant, and he did something stupid, and we got mad at him, and we ended up, yeah, I couldn't go to the gallery. Where is it? There it is. And we got to smooch him. Okay, so let's see. I'm guessing that this is, I think this is me personally thinking as a writer. This is when things start wrapping up. You know, we're halfway there, or maybe this is when the big twist happens. I don't normally stream on Saturdays. I usually have other stuff that I'm doing, but like I said, I'm going to be doing something tomorrow, and I didn't want to wait until Wednesday. Hi, James. So here we are. Out of the way things. I wish I could somehow show you what it is I see so you could understand. It's too hard to describe, but it's definitely changing. Time to meet Dekonami then? I don't know if there is a Dekonami equivalent in this story. I know this is going to sound weird, but the color is different and the structure seems more dense, uniform. It's brighter, basically. Reuben looked down at his hands with a frown. I don't feel any different. Based on some of what I read last night, it's possible for a power surge to leave someone's psi stronger than it was before, and in your case, the surge was artificially induced by a substance that appears to also be able to enhance one's psi ability. So he might be more than a pseudo-Esper. He might now be a proper Esper. Not just appears to. Quill verified that our unknown substance has an almost identical chemical makeup to their arsenal. Aerosol. Difference is that ours is more refined. The point stands. So you're suggesting I'm now in the process of becoming a full Esper? I can't say for sure. I do know that it's still changing. I trailed off, not wanting to freak him out, but based on the color and structure of his psi, I thought it was expanding to the point he may just need to get retested because he's no longer just P-class. Keep thinking about Nate Powell. It's not that your psi looks like his, but under the circumstances, I was thinking about that as well. Of course he was. When the Emersons turned up with a connection to community psi, my mind automatically went there. I mean, it's a different group, but still a support group. He wasn't registered as an Esper, so we assumed he hit it. Now I question whether he was originally an Esper or not. When you and I encountered this chemical, aerosol, we both power surged and were left incapacitated with psi fatigue for a brief period. But I'm an Esper and you were on the brink of it. If a normal human power surges, the damage could be more severe, right? That could be why he ended up in a coma. Yeah, I consider that possibility too. My issue is the lack of connection between his group and Community Psi. His overall case differs significantly from the Emersons. That's why I initially connected it to the case in Suna. If Powell was connected to the Emersons, does this mean there's a connection to the other attacks in Suna? None of those people experienced power surges. Why were sonic weapons used in the Emerson attack but nowhere else? What's the point of exposing people to Ernst's Hall in the first place? Maybe you should be looking for any other attacks or mysterious deaths of people connected to any support groups? And keep looking for any connection between Community Psi and Powell's group. I also think we should revisit the hospital. Maybe you'll be able to find something else this time. Your psychometry has already improved since then, so you might see something you missed before. And now, with the benchmark on Altered Psi, maybe we can have more tests done to see if it's similar to what's happening to mine. And I would need to revisit the Emerson's place, probably. The side drug in Babylon 5, I'm sorry to say I have not seen that at all, but I have heard of Babylon 5. It's just the only sci-fi TV show I was ever interested in was Star Trek. Star Trek and Star Wars, those are my sci-fi shows. Anything else, I'm not really interested in it. But those were the two that I was exposed to growing up, so that's what I know. We'd been puzzling over this the entire time Reuben was home, and had been in constant contact with Winter as well. It felt like we had more questions than answers, and every new discovery simply piled on more. Sent Winter a message. We can head to the hospital and he'll meet us there. Walter Koenig plays a psychop in Babylon 5. Oh, I didn't know he was in Babylon 5. That's really cool. I know Robert Picardo was in Stargate, but I can't remember if it was just SG-1 or Stargate Atlantis 2. I remember that much. Because my dad used to watch it, and I'd be walking past the room, and I'd hear the doctor, and I'd be like, wait, what? Wait, right now? No reason to wait. Sometimes you have to chase a lead the moment you find it. Let's go. Okay. I haven't been expecting that. Which he are you referring to? Walter Koenig or Robert Picardo? The joys of pronouns. Koenig. Okay. Reuben was still technically resting, but at this point we had all accepted the man didn't know how to rest. There are some people who are like that. Not me. I know when to rest. Usually when my body's like, okay, time for sleep. And down I go. Not serious regular. That makes sense. But it's cool that they had a Star Trek alum in Babylon 5. That must have been a boost. And even his boss seemed willing to accept that new case developments were important enough for him to ignore that Reuben was working. Just the fact that there was an unidentified substance at the Emerson scene was a big deal. The significance wasn't lost on anyone who knew about it. And it looked like Reuben quietly searching for information from home was over now. The hospital wasn't far, and we were in the lobby less than an hour after Reuben first decided we should go back. I like the two different outfits. I'm not sure which I like better. I mean, blue is my favorite color, but this looks very sleek and very professional, which is probably why that's what she wears when she's on the clock. Winter and I were a short distance from where he was speaking to the front desk about seeing Mr. Powell. Neither of us was saying much as we waited, until Reuben's voice rose, causing us to look that way. How could he be checked out? He was in a coma. Who checked him out? Was he transferred? Oh, shit. This is not good. I'm sorry, Detective. I don't have any information on that. How can you not have information on that? Patient privacy. I know, but this is in relation to a criminal investigation. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Reuben stood there a moment, as if trying to find another angle of attack, but after a moment he returned to where Winter and I were, a look of frustration on his face. So he was checked out from the hospital? Seems so. That's odd, especially if he was checked out and not transferred. Yeah, something's not right about this. Coma patient got up and walked away. Started missing person investigation. Now talk. You'd think I would know how to write after all this time. Maybe I could go up to his room to check anyway? What good will that do? He's not there, and I assume none of his personal belongings are either. There's nothing for you to get a reading of. I can get a reading, maybe, of the room itself to see who checked him out. And it's possible I'll be able to reconstruct enough of a visual of the room that I can observe his side. I know Reuben wanted to do additional testing. That might not be possible, but I can at least make a visual comparison of his side and Reuben's to see if there are any physical markers that are similar. Finish Gilded Shadows. I need more. Yeah, there's a reason that I watch streams of people playing FF14 or videos. Because I really enjoy the story, and actually just watching people's reactions and hearing them experiencing the story for the first time is just so much fun. That adds to my enjoyment. Anything that might help confirm if Powell was exposed to the same chemical. Is that even possible? So far, even you've only been able to see short pieces of past events. Will you be able to get a long enough or clear enough look to observe his side? FF14 streams too. Awesome. I'm looking forward to the new expansion for FF14. You have no idea. I'm still going back and playing. I have a lot of alts. I'm an altaholic. Oh, I hear that. Want to, but too many games. Yeah. I have a lot of games, but what do I keep doing? I keep going back and playing FF14. Psychometry relies on anchoring to extreme situations, and yes, but ultimately it's just a form of post-cognition. And not all post-cognition requires extreme situations. I don't know if it'll work, but there's no harm in trying now that I have a better grasp on the process. Psychometry might be chaotic and unstable because it's relying on echoes fueled by strong emotions, but I might be able to use it as a foundation to get a more detailed look. Dahlia's right. It won't hurt to check. At this point, our options are limited anyway. I guess we don't have much choice. I just don't think we can afford to make a huge fuss over or have a power surge here. I mean, I don't imagine that's of any actual concern at this point. At the very least, a power surge of any kind is unlikely. And someone being checked out of a hospital is hardly emotionally charged enough to cause Dahlia any stress. I admit my track record is a little dodgy, but I'd like to believe there were extenuating circumstances in some of those prior situations. That's fair. And the last time I was here, I didn't make a huge fuss either. Okay, fair enough. Wait here, I'll go ask if we can at least look at the room. Reuben returned to the front desk, but it's obvious even from where we were that the answer wasn't positive. He was trying to argue quietly to avoid making a scene, but the frustration was obvious, and the argument ended when the receptionist left. Whether it was to get away from Reuben or because they'd been called away, I wasn't sure. But Reuben returned to us moments later. They won't let us go up. Yeah, I gathered that much. What's the problem? They say the staff are preparing the room for another patient. There's no valid reason to let us go. Every time you turn around, there's a new demo or visual novels coming out. Literally saw some news about visual novels today and literally yesterday. Yeah, I did, I actually checked Steamberry's page and I downloaded the demo for Changeling. So after I finish Gilded Shadows, I'll play that. And then, after that, I'll decide whether I want to plan on buying that. Because I know that's already out and finished and stuff because they did that before Gilded Shadows. But this was the one that I was very interested in. There goes that plan. They started discussing options. I listened briefly, but did I even have to go up there? I mean, if it was psychometry or post-cognition, did I have to be at the location? I could possibly see any threads or echoes from here if I just expanded my clairvoyant sphere. Right? Or maybe abilities didn't stack like that? I wasn't sure. My actual knowledge of this stuff was still limited. Only saw 3 routes in Changeling. Plan to play it at the end of August. So how many routes are there in Changeling? It wasn't quite clear. I mean, there's a lot in Gilded Shadows. It's going to take me a while to get through them all. Especially since each one is different. It's not just the same story with slightly different characters. 6 routes total. Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, Gilded Shadows, there's 9, so... Considering how far I teleported when I first arrived here, I could at least try it. While Reuben and Winter spoke together nearby, I took a breath and shut my eyes, moving back to lean against the wall. Opening my sphere all at once seemed like it might give me mass information overload, so I did it slowly and targeted the hall adjacent to where we were. Then I mentally followed that, focusing in on each sign that flickered into my awareness so I could track a path through the hospital. Her eyes, it's so pretty! Trying to both open my sphere and keep it focused on specific hallways a little trickier than I thought, but I managed to get my consciousness all the way to the ward where Mr. Powell had been. It's just that, along the way, there were so many threads, so many echoes that my consciousness passed through, so difficult to wade through it all. My focus almost crumbled several times along the way. I tried to hold the memory of Nate Powell in my mind, remember the look and feel of his sigh, till I glimpsed one familiar thread that had his imprint on it. And I latched onto that, dragging myself to its point of origin. I love the effect of the lighting effect that they did here. This is really cool to show that she's doing this through her sigh and not physically. Dahlia, are you? The sound of his voice almost hauled me back to the lobby of the building, but I held up a hand, frowning. Not yet, just a few more minutes. What are you? Gritting my teeth, I closed myself off from my physical location to tune him out. My mind situated itself in Nate Powell's empty room as the image dimmed and ghostly silhouettes filtered into the scene. Powell was on the bed. 2 men near him, both in suits. Couldn't see their faces. I could see Mr. Powell's sigh fluctuating softly. The third person was outside talking with the staff. The ones inside knew him. He was a colleague, a teammate. Couldn't make out their voices. One of the men in black suits nodded to the other. He set his hands on Mr. Powell, and in an instant they were gone. They were Esper's! Startled by that realization, I jolted back into the present and my location in the lobby. I was working a game with 2 other devs for a game jam? Interesting. Now, clearly it's not under the Steamberry name, otherwise it would have been listed on itch, or they would have said something. It took a moment to realize Reuben and Winter were very close, gently trying to get my attention. I grabbed Reuben's hand and pulled him towards the exit. We should go. I'll explain in the car. What did you... Trust me! I'm sorry, can we back up and talk about how you managed to do this in the first place? It's not that complicated, and I already explained it once. Queen, remember that. Queen! I need to stop being surprised when you do and say this stuff. Alright, fine. I'll accept the unconventional nature of your little experiment, despite that I'm not sure no, Winter's right. I need to stop being surprised by this. Queen rank can do a lot. In any case, the bigger information is that Nate Powell was removed from the hospital by Espers. I just wish I'd seen their faces, and that I paid more attention to his sigh. I was so distracted by the Espers. Faces might not have helped this time anyway. The Esper database is huge, and we can't even say for sure that they're registered. Even knowing one was a knight might not have helped. We'll have to get their identities straight from the hospital. We can try, but the connection to our case is tenuous by legal standards, since we have information we don't want to put before a judge yet. As much as it feels like he's moved by someone one step ahead of us, we have no way of proving it without laying out some facts about Aeronsol that we may not want to make known yet, till we know how deep this goes. We'll need to take a step back to reconsider our options here. Maybe just focus in on the support groups for now. Still want Winter out, right? That would be so interesting, a queen rank with a non-Esper. Someone who has no sigh whatsoever. That would make for an interesting contrast. In any case, we need to find out what the connection between Espanon and a community sigh is, and what Nate knew that makes people want to hide him, if the Emersons had access to the same information. We'll do some digging back at the office. Back at the office, Reuben and Winter went to work on other things, and I was left to write down my theokinetic experiences again. I was getting pretty good at these reports. in my opinion anyway. But I couldn't help but listen in on their stream of consciousness discussion about the case. They were, it seemed, as confused about the details as I was. My big hang-up was the aerosol, though. It had one purpose, enhancing psi or triggering psi development. Why was it at the Emerson place? Someone was going around shooting people connected to Esper groups in order to turn them into Espers? That was so bizarre. And how did that turn into them being murdered? Meanwhile, if Nate Powell had been exposed to aerosol and left comatose, why wasn't he murdered? Or is that what today was about? That was a horrifying thought. It meant that someone was paying attention to this investigation if they wanted to move him before we got back around to him. What did it all mean, though? I tapped my fingers against the display, a heavy frown on my face as I tried to focus on my report instead of going in mental circles over all this. It's funny that while writing, it occurred to me how clairvoyance was oddly more flexible than I'd imagined before. Maybe psi in general was more flexible. Maybe it's just my rank that made it easier to do things that surprised Reuben and Winter. That's what I'm thinking. The fact that she's a queen rank allows her to do a lot of shit that they stop making hot side characters. Why he got no route? Oh, it's not just Steamberry. Lots of developers create these wonderful characters, and it's like, why can't I romance that one? I want that one. I wonder if there are people who want to romance Dekonami. I don't know, but I think it would be fun to romance Hansa. I know there are people who want to romance Zovak from Andromeda 6. Especially after the reveal of what he looked like. He is somehow Talarian, Catalpan, and human. Which, I mean, it's not that big a stretch, but it's still a bit of a surprise. It would be nice to have another queen rank to ask questions to. Still, I never thought about clairvoyant awareness as being a useful ability on its own, much less a stepping stone for other things. It had seemed so basic, an awareness of anything you couldn't use your physical sense to observe. Awareness. Things I couldn't use my physical senses to observe. Tilted my head as a strange thought came to me. Did that mean I could use clairvoyance to check the hospital computer systems to see who was listed as the responsible party for checking Mr. Powell out? Surely the hospital required a name and an identification. Of course, we didn't have legal documents entitling us to that information, but instead of straighter realizing there was a convenient loophole for me. The affidavit allowed my involvement in the case justified any exposure I might have to otherwise private information because it was natural for Esper to see things that might not yet be covered in a warrant or subpoena. As long as the information was later backed up with physical evidence obtained through the proper process, it was fair game. So if I peeked into hospital systems with psi, it should be okay on a technicality for now. Only certain villain you want to romance, but him? Nah. Which him are you talking about? Are you talking about Dekonami? The thing with me and romancing villains is, or specific characters, if they do something really, really horrendous, I can't like them. Like in FF14, there are lots of people who like Xenos who are like, I can fix him, and I'm like, no. No, I don't get why you're attracted to him, but you're valid for being attracted to him. I'm not. Or like Emmett Selg. He did some really horrendous stuff, and I like the character a lot better after Endwalker, but I don't want to romance him. Yeah, Xenos, I don't get the attraction to Xenos. I mean, physically, he looks great, but the personality just turns me off, and not to mention all the shit that he's done. And some of it to get your attention. I do like Emmett better than I like Xenos, because romancing Xenos is more of a man than a serious. Oh, there's people who definitely would want to actually get with Xenos. And I'm just like, no. But Emmett, so I can get behind him more than I can Xenos. I can't explain why I like Emmett more than Xenos. But I think it's more, Emmett did it he did it for selfish reasons, but ultimately they would have benefited more people, whereas Xenos did it for selfish reasons that really only benefited him. Well, assuming I could do it. Using clairvoyance to look into electronic information seemed tricky, but if it was just an awareness of things, then shouldn't it be possible to be aware of data? This is actually getting into the king rank abilities. I know Emmett makes a great villain. I like the villains where their motivations are very believable and understandable, but villains like Voldemort, no. Oops. It made sense in my head anyway. Glanced at Winter and Reuben, then decided to try it. I admit I knew very little about data storage. The whole concept of how the net and information stored on it worked was vague. Something nanites. That was about as technical as I got. I was aware that most devices didn't store data. They were just an interface into the net. However, sometimes data would be stored at a physical location temporarily, then relocated in batches, I thought. I mean, I saw that in a movie once. It felt reasonable. Yeah, if you can understand what they're going through, then I like that kind of villain more than straight up just evil for the sake of being evil. Expanded my sphere because if I was accessing data at the hospital, I assumed I would need to cage that location. At this point, I didn't even question how wide my sphere was. I just located the hospital and caged it. But now what to do? In my mind, a physical device worked like a sort of portal into, I don't know, a digital repository of some kind. That sounded more magical than it probably was. But all I could do was try to cage a specific input device in the hospital and look inside it. If it didn't work, no harm, right? Oh, this is so cool. I feel like I'm in the Matrix now. Oh, this is so cool. I'm just looking at this point. Okay, the moment I focused on one of the devices in the hospital lobby, my mind went dark and I thought it didn't work. But then information flowed through me. Names, images, words I didn't understand. Too much to sort through. Couldn't make sense of what I've seen or locate anything like this. I had to try to picture a more organized structure, then try to sift through it. There. Those were patient names and information. That's what I needed. Now, to find Nathan Powell. There he was. Once okay, the information just flowed into my mind. The name of the person who signed him out, I didn't recognize, but... Dahlia? I snapped back to Reuben's office with an almost painful jolt. I really need to get better at controlling this stuff so that didn't keep happening. Are you okay? Yeah? What's wrong? You've been sitting there perfectly still for a while now. We didn't want to make a fuss of it because we didn't want to draw attention to you, but you were... What were you doing? Another psychometric experience? It did seem similar to what happened at the hospital earlier. I think I have the name of the person who checked Nate Powell out of the hospital, or at least the one that's listed in the hospital system. How could you have that information? What did you just do, Dahlia? Draw yourself into OC and have a backstory too? Yeah, from what I picked up from Ari's route, basically she's the baby of the family and the only girl, so but there's still a lot of room to play with. I used my clairvoyant sphere to look at the data in their system. I know we don't technically have permission, but I'm sorry, you hacked into the hospital records with your sign? Yeah, when it's laid out like that, it does seem a little unbelievable. He used the words in a low tone, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. I wouldn't say I hacked it, no, I just looked with clairvoyance. You used technokinesis is what you're saying, like a king rank. No, it wasn't like anything that complex. I used my clairvoyance sphere to sort of cage the data in their system. Yeah, that would be technokinesis, Dahlia. But queen rank can imitate any other rank's abilities. So, of course, she can imitate the king rank's abilities. You can't just access hospital files without permission. Actually, based on the affidavit wording, I think she can. The Esper consultant permissions are clearly not designed for someone of Dahlia's caliber, something we didn't consider when we started all this. Reuben, I'm getting another headache. Sorry, but it seemed like it would work, so I figured I'd try. Yeah, I'm thinking we don't want to tell anyone you're capable of doing that. And we may need to have another discussion about doing reckless things without discussing it with other people first. Oops. The two of you are really doing your best to ensure I have persistent heartburn, aren't you? Looks like we're making a solid effort. But you said you at least got a name? Not sure it's going to help if we can't reveal to anyone how we got it without putting Dahlia's position at risk. Queen rank, oh god, that's gonna be fun. Yeah. A lot of people are going to draw the line at someone who can just casually search private data without restriction. Okay, that was a valid concern. I didn't quite think this one through, did I? Let's set that aside to be figured out later. Let's see where this takes us for now. Gabrielle Ricci is the name. I'm saying Ricci because of the actress Christina Ricci. Yeah, I think, honestly, Reuben and Dahlia need someone like Winter to kind of rein them in from doing the stupid shit. Or at least pointing out that they've done stupid stuff. That is familiar somehow. He rolled his chair closer to his desk, typing on the input device for a few seconds. Winter leaned over his shoulder to watch. She's an aide to Senator Sophie Wilson of the UTG? How in the world did you recognize that? She reached out when Dahlia first got here to express Senator Wilson's support. That's how. Huh, interesting. Bet she didn't think she'd show up in an investigation a few weeks later. Probably not. Why is the aide of a UTG senator assigning Nate Powell out of the hospital in Arida? I am not sure. I don't like where any of this is heading, Reuben, and I don't like how much of this case is made up of things we can't share with anyone. It's feeling more and more like one of your damn conspiracy theories. I know. What do we do now? We need a solid connection between the Powell case and the Emerson case, one that doesn't rely on information we shouldn't have. Yes we do. But we need to figure out if that connection is Gabrielle Ricci. And Dahlia? Stop using Psy to sneak into places I shouldn't be? Winter have a route, I feel like we'd all drive him crazy. Yes, definitely. For the rest of the day at least, please. I suppose I can do at least that much. Did you finish the earlier report? Not yet. Maybe focus on that then? Right, yeah. I'll do that. Almost as proud of himself, he gently tapped the underside of my chin, smiling just wide enough I caught sight of the dimple before I went back to what he'd been doing before. Oh, it's so cute. Technokinesis, huh? I hadn't thought of it like that. How could I use an ability I'd never seen anyone else use? New meanings to wishful thinking. Yeah. Then again, Queen Rings didn't have to mimic specific people. They could replicate other abilities on their own as well. So maybe that was why. But if I could so easily do things that made people uneasy, well, that was the entire reason Espers were regulated the way they were, wasn't it? I'd been getting a little carried away with the determination to find answers for this stupid case, and I hadn't considered the consequences. I should be more careful. A lot more careful. I was working on dinner alone a few hours later. Reuben had gone to his home office straight away, and I heard him talking to people on and off. She got her hair pulled back. That's cute. I like it. Honestly, this would be me. I don't like having my hair loose when it's long. Aside from cooking, I've been doing some reading in the side lessons Magnus had given me before. There wasn't a lot of information on technokinesis, just basic definitions, but from what was there, I could see what I'd done probably did fall under that classification. It made me both curious and fearful of what else I could do with this ability I knew so very little about. By the way, welcome back, James. Those kinds of thoughts occupied my mind right up until Reuben finally emerged from his study. He saw me finishing up cooking, and as expected, you didn't have to cook, Dahlia. I was going to suggest we order takeout. No, I refuse. Is there anything I can help with? to be honest, part of the reason that I kept my hair short for a long time is because it's very thick. So if I leave it loose, it just feels too warm. Even at night, I keep it pulled back into a ponytail or a braid just so that it won't be all over the place. I've been thinking about cutting it short again. I'm almost finished, but if you want to get out plates, I haven't had a chance. Of course. He joined me in the kitchen, and while I was curious what he'd been up to, I made it a point to not ask about work. He didn't bring it up either until I started helping him with the place settings. I was thinking about the hospital earlier, and I reached up and covered his lips with my finger. After dinner. You've been working all day, and though I'm sure there's a lot to talk about, I think we can at least have dinner and talk about something else for a little while. Sorry. I let my fingers rest on his jaw for a split second before moving my hand. For what? I'm saying this for your sake, not mine. I suppose the drawback of spending so much time with someone I've been working with is that it's inevitable to want to discuss work all the time. Yes, but fortunately it's me you're spending time with, and I'm determined to give you a break. Oh, that's sweet. Your mom was like, better not cut your hair. My mom was, well, one time I got something stuck in my hair. I think it was gum. And I cut it out without Mom knowing. And so we had to cut my hair short for that. Just because it looked funny. And I'm an adult. Ever since I turned 18, Mom was like, do whatever you want with your hair. Thanks. How's your father? I noticed you got a call from him at the office earlier. Well, I wasn't sure. Actually, I had to look up ABBA. Not that I meant to eavesdrop on you, but it just seems like a very dad conversation. Yeah, I mean, it's fun to have long hair, but at the same time, it's a bit of a pain to deal with. I'm sure it did. And he's fine. My nephew's birthday is coming up. They know I can't make it, but my sister wanted to invite me anyway. They wanted to ask if I'll call and talk to him on the day. How old is your nephew? He's 10, a year older than my niece. How cute. Do any of your brothers have children? No, Oliver and his wife have been delaying it. I think they've been hoping for things with Sarah to stabilize more permanently. You know how it is there. I can only imagine how difficult it is to raise a child in that kind of environment. Well, they're out in a smaller settlement, so it's not as bad as when things heat up, but things aren't ideal right now. Brian and his fiancée won't be interested in children for a while either, probably. The rest of us are, to my mother's lasting chagrin, still single. So from the sound of it, Oliver is the oldest, and then Brian is the second oldest. Not that she wants us all to be married with children. I think she worries sometimes that we inherited my father's tendency to work too much. My dad says the same thing about me. So when is your brother getting married? In a few months. I'm not sure I'll even be able to attend anymore. I'm sure you will. That's plenty of time for things to settle. It would be nice if that turned out to be true. By the way, another investigative team has requested your help with one of their cases. Phil has tentatively said not yet, that you're still in a unique situation and won't be available for a request yet. But I thought you ought to know that people are looking at you that way. So that's cool that people are already like, hey, can she help us? Interesting. What kind of case is it? Do you know, or do you know the team who asked? Unfortunately, he didn't give me that information. Surprised you're curious about it. Somehow I thought you might be upset, I guess. I don't see a reason to be upset by it. I suppose I'm surprised. With all the drama I've caused since showing up, so I've expected everyone to want to stay away from me. I did destroy a crime scene after all. Well, technically two. Or no. I guess the first part, since you didn't destroy it, it just affected the psi things. It still haven't really helped much, not in ways you can be open about. That's not true. The second drama, as you call it, was not only not your fault, but it also caused us to make a discovery we wouldn't have under normal circumstances. I hope you realize we work with Espers all the time. While we might not be total experts on the use of psi, I think we all understand that it's not an exact science. And well, we're all in desperate need of adept Espers to help with some of what we do. That's the whole reason Phil thought having you on would get people to support you. I'm not surprised others want to get you on their cases, but I agree with Phil that it's too early. We don't even know if you'll continue to consult after your case is settled. I imagine I'll have to for a while, even if it's just for appearances. If I get to start attending class again, it shouldn't be a problem to consult on the side. 9 love interests and 9 spots for saves. Yeah, it seems really stingy that it's just the 9 pages for saves. And they gave us 9 love interests with 14 chapters each. That feels like the far future at this point, though. But I have to admit that consulting has been more interesting than I expected. I don't think it would be a bad thing to help sometimes. Well, with this, you know you'll be in demand if you stick around. It's good to know people aren't afraid of me perpetually blowing up their crime scenes. Once you have a handle on it, that's the thing. You're very new to this. Once you have a handle on it, you should be fine. He laughed at that. Well, it's not like you have to decide that now anyway. I just wanted to let you know. I appreciate it. It makes me feel a little better knowing that people find me at least somewhat trustworthy. I'm sure they find you more than a little trustworthy. Or they're just that desperate. Or both. Given the usual state of things, it's almost definitely both. He paused, then sighed. I'm sorry, Dahlia. I have to take this call. I'm really sorry. He stepped away with an apologetic smile, then stepped outside. He was only there a few minutes before he relocated to the study with a determined look on his face. Poor thing. He never got a proper break, did he? That's the issue with law enforcement and this kind of stuff that I've seen in media, is that there really isn't such a thing as a day off for some people. When it was clear he'd be a while, I decided to put the food away for later. He'd barely eaten anything. It would be nice if he had one evening to just relax. But in his line of work, I imagine that was rare, especially when a case like this was eating up all his time. I may redo the way I'm saving this, but I think it'll wait until I've actually gotten through the story. I understood that pretty well. In New Albion, I spent almost every waking minute studying, and before Trent left, he and I sometimes struggled to talk about anything but school or the latest research relating to our fields. I'd give it a little while then, maybe taking some tea or a snack. In the meantime, I curled up on the sofa, planning to read some more. But I struggled to focus, thinking about what Reuben said about others requesting my help on their cases. It really could be useful and scary, like what happened earlier with the hospital records. I drew my knees up, pressing my arms on them. I was starting to realize why so many others craved being able to control people like me. If even I didn't know the limits to my own abilities, how must I look to others? A container of limitless potential, probably. Maybe this whole fairy phenomenon was a good thing. If Espers were more commonplace, maybe society would be forced to reconcile with them in a way that stopped all this fighting over them. I ended up not doing any reading at all. I lay there for who knows how long, staring at the ceiling and contemplating espers and aerosol and technokinesis, and problems that had no simple solutions. Until, feeling prickly and frustrated, I finally stood and decided it was time to stop. I made tea for myself and decided that Reuben had been working long enough, he needed a break as well. I entered a short while later with a quiet knock. He glanced up, and I noted right away how tired he looked. Thoughts of distracting myself were replaced with worry. Holding up the cup of tea as if it was an offering, I went to his desk and set it on the corner, moving the antique telephone out of the way. Antique telephone. That's an antique. Right. I hadn't even known what that was until Reuben explained it to me once and said it was a gift from his dad. Imagine not knowing what a landline telephone looks like. You didn't have to bring me that. I thought you could use it. You've been at it for a while now. I'm sorry. That wasn't an indictment, detective, just an observation. Thank goodness, being indicted in my own home would be depressing. He lifted the tea, taking a careful sip, his eyes slipping shut as he inhaled the steam. And thank you for this. I definitely needed it. No problem. I'm sorry I've been shut up in here all evening while you were out there alone. No worries. You don't have to spend every waking moment babysitting me. I shifted my position to behind his chair as he spoke, quietly cracking my knuckles. It's not about... No, soft groan as I started kneading the tense muscles. His head dipped just a little. Don't do that. That's a very unconvincing request to stop. I laughed to myself and kept going. Okay, he likes this kind of thing. Noted. I bit my lip, grinning just a little at the soft groans I strongly felt he was trying to stifle. How's the research going? I don't know. You're going to put me to sleep if you keep that up. What a travesty! Then those dark circles under your eyes would go away, and we can't have that. I still have work to do. You don't have to do it all tonight. No, but I leaned down, placing my lips just near his ear. Don't make me threaten to take your devices away. He visibly flinched at the feeling of my breath against his skin, and I had to bite back to laugh. You can't take the nanosystem away. I can find other ways to distract you. I softened the harsh digs into his shoulders to something more like a caress, snickering at the tremor in his voice when he spoke again. I am not sure about that. I have experience dealing with people who don't know when to set their work aside. Is this the usual method? One of them. Is it working? I lowered my head, nuzzling the side of his neck. Reuben inhaled sharply, holding his breath. A little too well, I think. Impossible. When he twisted his head towards me, I pulled back a little, then kissed him before I rested my head against his. He seemed a little startled, but didn't move away. Can't figure this one out, Dahlia. I thought there would be a more obvious connection between everything, but I can't find it. What the hell was that aide doing, taking Nate Powell out of that hospital? And who are those Espers? Is this even related to the Emersons? If it's not, what the hell is going on with Powell's case? Yeah, this is very sweet. I'm losing my grip on everything, and I don't know. His desktop device beeped twice, and I moved back a little to let him check whatever it was. Looks like that search was another dead end. He let out a strangled groan as he started typing again. I leaned against his desk, picking up a new stack of papers I didn't recall seeing before. What's this? Quill sent me that earlier. It's a list of outside investors who have ties with Aurelian businesses and organizations. He thought it might help. Haven't looked at it yet. Why did he send you that? Aurelia is the dome Nisa has ties to. He thinks it's likely one of these businesses is the leak point. A large company inside Aurelia has shell corporations in Aurelia through which they distribute some of their other work. It also has access to the aerosol research, so if we could connect any of those investors to this current case, it might be a solid lead. But even if we can't, it's good to look over the investors anyway. He figured if anyone was able to locate outside connection points, it would be me. Until now, he's been hesitant to share anything like this. Too much concern about the damage I could cause Nissa with this information. In any case, even though we know for sure this case is related to the Nissian Research League, who knows how many hands it's passed through until now. And of course, this is another piece of ill-gotten information. Even if it pans out, we have to hope it leads us to something more solid. I scanned the list as Reuben spoke. So I suppose you're going to start with broad connections, like find people on this list involved in the Esper groups or something? Or people tied to the UTG, too. There may be some senators and other officials who have privately invested, so I'll need to... Oh, this is Sophia Williams on this list. Isn't that similar to the senator whose aide checked Nate Powell out of the hospital? Sophie Wilson, Sophia Williams? Reuben stood up and took this list from me, looking over it himself. It could be a coincidence. Possibly, it just jumped out at me because of the similarity. Sophia Williams. Maybe I should have looked at this list earlier. I think I've seen that name before. He leaned against the desk, eyes going distant, running a query through the nanosystem, I assumed. That's what I thought. Sophia Williams is listed as a donor for Community Psi. Now that I think about it, he pulled up another list of names. There is a Sophia Wilson listed as an executive in Espionage. That one didn't even register for me earlier because the spelling is so different. A lot of similar names, huh? Can't be that simple. Guess it depends how confident they were no one would ever look into this. Reuben fell back in his chair, eyes narrowed and darting back and forth. Definitely looking at more information. I leaned against his desk, frowning as I watched him. If we connected Senator Wilson to the Nicean Research Group, the Esper support groups, and the Emerson case, what did that mean? What were they trying to do? I don't like where it's going. What is it? Reuben stood and paced to the window, one hand on his chin. There's a group, deep in the UTG, a government group called Domain. An unofficial group? No, the group itself isn't well known, but it's not top secret. The projects it's involved with, though, unofficial is an understatement. But this group's thing comes up in connection to Esper research sometimes. Esper research? Is it research about Espers? Officially, yes, and your favorite unofficial goes back now, because there are rumors there are unofficial research is on Espers, as in human test subjects. Oh boy. Illegal human experimentation. That was obviously in play the moment Aaron Saul was discovered at one of the scenes. But we'd been dancing around dragging that subject to the heart of this case. Until now, I guess. Does Senator Wilson have connections with this secret but not secret group? It's not easy to see who the sponsors for Domain are. We'll have to talk to Gabrielle Ricci tomorrow. If we just ask her a few questions, we don't have to tell her how we've connected her to this. We? Well, I think it might be wise for you to go too. Just in case. It sounds like she's a dangerous criminal to be wary of, and I don't know. I feel like you should go. Got instincts? Maybe. If you're okay with it, of course. I'd prefer you to stay out of sight and not get involved in any direct interactions, but having your new bride, I think... Of course I'm okay with it. My helping with this is the whole point. Just didn't expect to drag you into a case with this kind of... Magnus said I needed to think bigger, didn't he? Reuben gave me a sharp look. All things considered, it's starting to feel a little personal, you know? It's never a good thing when a case becomes personal. That's for you. I'm a mere civilian. I can do what I want. Not everything you want. You pulled some questionable things today, I hope you realize. They didn't seem questionable at the time. If you go with us tomorrow, can I trust you to not do anything questionable? I promise I'll be good. He visibly hesitated before pulling me into a very reserved hug. Good. So, are we going to go bed at all tonight, or stay up running searches until we can't move? Reuben stiffened oddly and was so silent I had to pull away and look up at him. He had the strangest look on his face. You okay? Just tired, I think. Maybe it is a good idea for me to stop for the night. We might have a long day tomorrow chasing down Gabrielle Ricci. You should get some sleep, too. If I leave, I know you'll stay up longer. I won't be too long. I have some things to wrap up and maybe a quick lead to chase. Quick. Then I'll stay up and help. You're going to be up for hours digging for information on Senator Wilson, so let me help. We'll divide and conquer. He hesitated, but finally gave in. He made a list of things for me to cover, and we both got to work. I'd pulled all-nighters before, so this was nothing. Though his worrying about my getting rest was pretty funny. And his worrying about me was probably the only reason either of us got any sleep. He just couldn't stand to see me staying up too late. We worked for a couple of hours before he gave up and said we should get some sleep. This was becoming heavier, becoming more than what we originally thought. My original goal felt like it was being swallowed by the enormity of what this case was becoming. And not for the first time, I couldn't see where things would go from here. Well, that's a great way to ensure he gets sleep. Chapter 9. Close your eyes. We'll have you wait outside at first, and one of us will come get you or contact you if we need your insight. No interactions with Ms. Ricci. I understand. As we were on our way to talk to this aide of Gabrielle Ricci, Reuben had caught Winter up on last night's late discovery. Of course, Winter wasn't yet convinced we stumbled on an Esper experimentation plot. He did have to acknowledge the connections between Powell, the Emersons, and Senator Wilson were solidifying. Tie him up in another chapter. Yeah, that's one way to do it. But how would we stop the nano part? That's the question. Reuben, I hope you realize that if this goes the way you expect, despite all promises, we're not going to be able to keep Nisa out of this case. I'm aware of that. If some sort of illegal research is uncovered, people will want to know the original source. And Quill knows that as well. What he wants isn't permanent secrecy, since that won't be on the table now that his unknown chemical is central to the case with the Emersons. He just wants time to prepare, but he understands this will reach a point it's out of my hands and has assured me they're working on their end to make sure Nissa is ready. In our last conversation, he said he's bracing for the fallout, but the longer we can keep the source of variance out of the spotlight, the more time they'll have. I hope you realize we may not be able to keep what happened with the hospital records out of the spotlight at this rate either. I highly doubt Richie is going to be willing to talk, and even if we massage the facts on how he got the information, there's going to be an inquiry if it seems like our affidavit needs adjusting. I'm unsure what the fallout will be of people realizing the implications of a queen rank in society, but I know this case is already bigger than that. We can worry about the larger implications later. Like with Minnesota, we can keep the lid on that for a while. It's not like we're going to publicize every detail of this investigation. I just want Dahlia to be prepared for the fact this could get ugly. No offense, but I've seen ugly before. Well, if Richie won't talk, he may see it again. I already knew that, and I didn't think it could possibly get any worse than anything I'd already experienced. Though I suppose we'd find out. As an aide to Senator Wilson, there was always a chance Gabrielle Ricci wouldn't be in the city. However, the Senate wasn't in session at the moment. And given she must have been at the hospital a few days prior, Reuben suspected she was around. When we reached her building, Reuben and Winter headed in first. They wanted me to stay outside, and that ended up meaning I stayed outside. She lived in a busy downtown area above a shopping center, so I didn't stand out as I loitered around waiting for them to contact me. I just stood casually in front of a shop storefront watching the crowd. The last time I'd been alone in public like this had been the day Endgame attempted to apprehend me off the footpath. Such a startling turning point, an unexpected event that sent my entire life reeling down a side path I could never have imagined. It was strange thinking of how that day led me to where I was. But if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been able to get to know Reuben. And this case probably wouldn't be progressing either. They'd have been stalled long before now, and the culprits might not ever be brought to justice. Though that could still very well be the case. Could I say I was glad I was here now? I wasn't sure about that. But I was glad to have met Reuben. I was glad he was in my life. And I hated thinking about the possibility that he so easily might not have been. But I didn't think I'd ever be able to say I was glad Endgame derailed things as they had. It was more like I was just relieved something good came out of it, and I was sad at the thought of missing some of the things I'd experienced here. That was beginning to edge out the anger and devastation I felt at first. Besides, it would be awful if the crimes were being committed continued on, and more people suffered because of them. If I could help stop that, maybe it was worth having had a really bad day once. You should be focusing on the case, not contemplating the meaning of life, Dahlia. I'm going to say it. 42. I berated myself for allowing my thoughts to wander when this wasn't exactly the place for thinking about things like greater purpose or my place in the world. Checked the time to find I'd been standing on the street alone for a whole 2 minutes. I probably hadn't even reached her flat yet. I should at least wait that long before I try to become one with the universe or whatever I'm doing right now. As I stood waiting for Reuben to call me up, 2 young individuals exited the building near where I was standing. They were talking in quiet voices and walking at a hurried pace that caught my attention. I locked eyes with one of them without intending to, surprised to find myself staring down an Esper. And not a low-level one either. His color was a bright orange, which wasn't a color I'd seen before. The other one was an Esper as well. Her color was a blotchy and cold purple. The man's gaze slid from mine as they retreated, but my eyes continued to follow them. That's odd. It's only seconds later that there was a faint shout from inside the building. At first I hadn't even been sure I heard it, but my eyes snapped back to the 2 Espers when they broke into a run right after the second shout. It was them. Whatever was happening, it was them. Oh no, what are you going to do? And that shout, I was pretty sure it was Winter. Fuck. And this is not good, No bueno, as they say in Spanish. Do not follow them. I wasn't sure what to do. I was not in a crime series. I was not a detective or a public safety officer. That wasn't my job even now. But I'll admit, I still nearly broke into a run to give chase almost on instinct. However, I did not. Instead, I expanded my sphere to track them, since that was probably the more logical and acceptable course of action. The moment I encompassed them, I felt it slam against their side, intruding into the sphere of the purple Esper. And beyond that, I could sense that person's awareness of me. Not of someone, but of me, personally. I yanked my sigh away as if I'd been burned. Seconds later, Winter bolted out of the building as well. When the music changed, I always get scared. Yeah, definitely. And not just with a visual novel, with any game. When the music changed, you know something's coming. He spotted the two fleeing Espers right away and darted after them. Hey! Winter, wait! He wouldn't know they were Espers. This time I did give chase, only because Winter needed to be warned. Without the nano system, I couldn't just send him a message. I doubted he'd answer his handheld while engaged in a foot chase if I attempted to call him on that. The two Espers were already well out of sight and probably beyond our ability to catch up, courtesy of their head start. Gritting my teeth, I expanded my sigh again. I just had to deal with the consequences of them knowing I was following. They had moved through multiple alleys already, and I had no idea how we'd even catch up at this rate. They're fast. As I tried to at least catch Winter, I found myself wishing for some way to get us both where the Espers were, or get him there and me not there. If we could just pop over to where they are long enough to get a good look at them or something. I had the thought and felt instant regret when apparently my brain decided to grant that wish. The world warped and... oh shit. Teleportation! Stumbled out into the alley right in front of the three surprisingly young individuals clustered together and, I think, preparing to leave. They all stared, and I stared back. Hello? Now how do I get out of here? I was tense, desperately trying to undo what I just done and ready to be attacked or something. But they didn't move toward me or do anything but stare at me, and I wondered if Winter would manage to catch up to us on his own at this rate. It's the one that I saw earlier. The purple Esper murmured it in a low voice to the others, and the young man with the bright orange sigh stepped forward. I took a rapid step back. Are you with Endgame? No, I'm not. Then what's a high-ranking Esper like you doing helping Utpal? She wasn't a part of Project Aquarius, was she? Huh, Project Aquarius. Project what? No, she's that girl in the news. That queen rank. I wasn't sure if I should confirm or deny that. Are they forcing you to help them? The one that asked, the one with the blue side this time, seemed so sad when they asked that. Angry. What the heck is this? These people, whoever they were, did not seem like hardened criminals by any stretch. They were just kids. Maybe I could hold them here until Winter and Reuben showed up. They're not forcing me exactly. My situation is complicated. Why were you in that building? And why are my colleagues interested in finding you? We didn't do anything. She was like that when we found her. What? They're always faster than we are. Every damn time. Leon, I'm sorry. What in the world are they talking about? Riley, it's not your fault. You, don't get in our way. We don't want to hurt people. Just get to them first so we can... Guys, the others are almost here. Let's go. We have to reach the next target first this time. The one with blue side, the knight, stepped closer to the others, looked my way, and they were gone. I didn't try to stop them, because what could I even do? Went around the corner moments later and found me staring at the empty place in front of me. I found her! He had his HCD to his ear as he sought to catch his breath, expressed as angry as I expected. When he lowered it, I imagined he was going to start lecturing, so I held up a hand before he opened his mouth. Handheld communication device. Okay. Don't start. That was unintentional. I was only trying to keep them in my sphere so I could tell you where they went. Teleporting was not in the plan. I don't want to hear another lecture. I glanced back to where they had been standing earlier. They didn't try to hurt me, anyway. Did you know they were Espers? I did. I didn't exactly want to shout it on the streets, but I didn't think you'd answer if I pinged your HCD. I was just trying to get close enough to let you know without alerting everyone on this block. I guess I can understand that. Their ranks? Do we know those? Well, one was a knight, obviously. I assume the others were a bishop and a rook, but I haven't encountered enough ranked Espers to be sure. Not while I was aware of Psy the way I am now. What happened in there? Who were those three? What the hell happened? There's Reuben. Ah. And I dropped the lid from my soda. Ah. Come here. I don't want to bend down to reach you. Come here. That's not working. Ah. There we go. I had to bend down, I get it. Here we go. Save the lecture for later, Reuben. It's an accidental teleportation. She's only trying to warn me they were Espers. Which I do appreciate, because if I'd even managed to catch up, I might have been in trouble on my own. They didn't seem violent, so maybe not. They didn't even try to attack when I caught them by surprise. They asked if you were forcing me to help you, as if they thought I might need help. What? That doesn't matter. You should have stayed out of it, Dahlia. You were a civilian. You can't chase after people. You aren't an agent. You're not even trained, and I didn't bring you for this kind of thing. You weren't even expecting this kind of thing. That's beside the point, and you know it. I said save it, Reuben. We need to get back to Ricci. Medics are already on the way, and a nearby squad car already arrived. That's why I followed you. What happened with Miss Ricci? She was unresponsive in her flat when we arrived. The door was open, and she was on the ground. She's not... Then those three... So that's what they meant. We don't know. We saw them leaving that floor when we arrived, so when we found her, I wanted to chase them down for questioning. They were already fleeing by the time I got out of the building. They started running when we heard what I assumed was one of you shouting. I could tell they were Espers right away, but I wasn't sure what to do when they ran. I started tracking them with my side, but it was startled when I realized that what I assumed was a bishop became aware of me. I started chasing them right around then, and as I said, I was worried you wouldn't know they were Espers. So you followed. I did intend to stay out of the way once you had that information. Then how did you manage to teleport instead? The same way I did the last time. I had their location caged so I could keep them in my sight, and I was thinking that I wished I could get Winter to their location, and then teleported myself there instead. Yeah, you'll have to get control of that. You cannot be accidental and teleport yourself into dangerous situations at the drop of a hat. Yeah, well, I don't have lessons on that subject. I didn't even think I could still do it. I assumed there was a time limit on how long I could retain copied skills, or something. Looks like you were wrong. I think, honestly, once she knows how to do it, she can do it at will. By will. That was my assumption. Yeah. Come on, we can talk about this more later. I have a feeling the scene back at Ricci's place is chaos just about now. Right about now, we need to get back to it. Please, just... I know, I am trying. Sure. I had a feeling I was in for so many more lectures. They hadn't let me into Gabrielle Ricci's flat. Not this time. Not without knowing the situation. Even Reuben wasn't allowed in. And everyone was wearing protection in case there was aerosol present in the air again. The case had already claimed one more victim. We needed to be sure there weren't any more. Instead, we left the cleanup to others and went back to the office where Reuben and Winter had a frantic discussion with Phil. Then calls and messages. Many of them. I continued to be amazed by the way they compartmentalized what happened. How they didn't pause for long to take in the tragedy. How they kept going. It wasn't as easy for me, but I tried. It wasn't the first time Death had been involved in this case, but it felt like we'd have been able to save her if we'd just been faster. There was guilt, anger, mostly confusion. I was thinking about that when Reuben showed up with a cup of coffee. You okay? Yeah, I think so. I shrugged, not sure how to explain it. I took the cup from him and took a sip, then made a face because their coffee was terrible. Apparently coffee at all police offices is terrible. I get it. Look, we've been working on a timeline of everything to lay it all out for Phil clearly, and reconstructed some of what we thought we knew to this point, as well as adding in some new findings by Winter. We're getting ready to sit down with Phil. He wants you there. You up for it? Of course. I stood and Reuben guided me to a side room, a reassuring hand on my back. When I entered, I noticed right away that they'd made a digital display that was similar to Reuben's corkboard in his home office, except much more organized. Phil came in just after us. Sorry, had a call. Now. He flopped down, crossing his arms over his chest, raising an eyebrow at their display. Let's hear it. All of it this time, please, and thank you. I'm going to have to lay some foundation for everything else first. I'm listening. The gist of it is that we know of a shadow dome existing under Aureli's care, but outside public knowledge. It's called Nissa, and I have a contact there. A few years back, Nissa discovered a chemical capable of altering, even increasing, an individual's psi, aerosol. That said, the chemical is dangerous, causing flash power surges that can lead to instant burnout or death. For this reason, the research was restricted and never publicized outside their city. However, my contact there suspects that this research leaked to the outside some time ago. He's been trying to identify the source of the leak with little luck. Alright, sounds like the level of bullshit I can expect from you. Go on. Just under 2 months ago, a man named Nick Powell was found unconscious and roughed up in an alley here in Erida. At the time, due to abnormalities in his boric system, we believed he suffered a psionic attack. When I took Dahlia to him for a psychometric reading, however, she realized that Powell was an Esper, but he wasn't registered as one. Oops. For reference, Nate Powell is an administrative coordinator for Espanon, an Esper support group here in Arida. Fast forward to the Emerson case a few days ago. 2 adults found deceased in their flat. One is a P-class Esper. Dahlia and I both experienced unexplained power surges at the scene. In the process of investigation, we found a damaged jet cartridge containing an unknown substance, which I've confirmed with Nissa is in fact aerosol. Our theory is that Dahlia was exposed to it in the air due to the cartridge damage, and I was exposed when I touched it. This is where things start getting tangled. Start? At the look on Reuben's face, Phil leaned back again, motioning with his hand for Reuben to continue. We learned from Dahlia that the Emersons had begun a new project of some kind, which, based on Winter's research, we now believe to involve data organization for Community Psi. Winter's digging also turned up something else interesting. Espanon was filing clients to Community Psi on the grounds that CP had more resources to help them. Interesting, so there is a connection. So you think the attacks are linked? It doesn't end there. We'd already considered a connection to the cases because of Nate Powell's Psi. He wasn't supposed to be an Esper, and now we have a dangerous chemical that can cause Psi development and non-Espers involved. We were already considering the possibility of aerosol exposure, so we returned to the hospital hoping to confirm whether that was the case. But once there, we found he'd been checked out, not transferred. Dahlia confirmed through psychometry that he was collected by 3 unknown Espers. Needless to say, the timing and circumstances were suspicious. He shot me a silent look at this point before it continued. Using her side, Dahlia was able to confirm that the name on the hospital release was Gabrielle Ricci, a 2 UTG Senator Sophie Wilson. Wilson, as it turns out, may also have ties to Community Psi and Espanon under 2 separate aliases, and it's also possible she's an investor in an Aurelian shell corporation with ties to Nissa. I glanced at Phil to see how he took that. His face was impassive as he listened. He's probably just waiting to hear the whole spiel before he says anything. We decided to talk to Ricci, but we were too late. We pursued a group of Espers leaving the scene. We labeled them our alleyway trio for the time being. In a brief and non-violent confrontation, they denied harming Ms. Ricci. They also made several cryptic statements implying the involvement of another group that may be trying to find people related to all this. And something about an Aquarius project. They then fled via teleportation. Initial reports on Ricci confirmed signs of cardiac arrest, but there are also indications of abnormalities in her boric system. We're hoping further analysis can confirm either psionic attack or possible aerosol exposure. So what's the theory here? You have a senator from the triad, experimental chemicals from a shadow dome, and bodies piling up at this point. What the hell is going on? I can't imagine more than 1 or 2 ways to tie this one together, honestly. I mean, he wasn't wrong. If the triad got their hands on a substance that could enhance Psi, then there were limited things they'd be doing with it. Wait, what you're implying right now takes us to a hell of a dark place, Reuben. I know. What is the role of Community Psi and Espanon in all this, then? Esper support groups are an entryway into communities with a lot of desperate people, some of whom might not be noticed if they disappear. I don't like what you're suggesting, Ashton. Oh, that's his last name? I don't like it either. Phil let out a soft groan, then stood and went to Reuben's digital display, shifting around some of the notes. So let me get this straight. You're suggesting the UTG is sponsoring some kind of Esper experiments using this aerosol. They're using the support groups to find test subjects, which puts St. Powell and the Emersons dead center in this scheme. Presumably the experiments need Espers, since aerosol appears to be deadly for normal people, but less so for Espers, if Reuben and Dahlia are anything to go by. Powell was sending Espers to Community Psi for collection, I guess. The Emersons were managing client data and would have had access to where they were being sent. That's what we're thinking, yes. Wilson is the UTG contact, and Ricci was involved as her aide. Who targeted the Emersons, Powell, and Ricci? Is this some sort of cleanup attempt? We can't answer that yet. Okay, so who the hell is this alleyway trio? We're not totally sure about that yet either, but we don't think they were the ones involved in Powell's disappearance. Dahlia said that there were 2 groups of Espers at the Emersons, and they were clashing with each other. If we consider what the trio said in that alley, they may have been at the scene, and it doesn't seem to me like our trio is a group trying to clean things up. So the trio clashed with the cleanup crew? That is our current theory, yeah. And the aerosol, why was it at the Emerson scene? You said it yourself, it appears to be pretty deadly for normal people in the right doses. And as you know, phoric abnormalities can be detected in a deceased brain for a very short period after death. So if you give someone enough aerosol to cause a flash burnout, it could look like any number of natural deaths in an autopsy. The only reason we caught any abnormalities in Richie was because of the timing. In Powell's case, he survived, but because he wasn't believed to be an Esper, the abnormalities were attributed to psionic attack rather than something like psi fatigue or a power surge. So they were intended to use it to assassinate the Emersons, but got desperate when they were interrupted by a trio, and they used a quick and dirty method before running away. Just a theory for now, but yeah, that's what I think. Jeez. Reuben, this case is so full of holes, I have half a mind to shut it down right now, I hope you realize. Just turn it over to Endgame and let them sort it out. And the only reason I'm not already on a call with them is because I know what's going to happen the moment they catch wind of Greenwink going around looking into everyone's private information. Not to mention shadow domes, chemicals that alter psi, and human experimentation. I didn't look at everyone's information. The UTG is our boss, Miss Blumenthal, and you want to drag one of its senators into an absolute clusterfuck of a case? I mean, I didn't personally want to do that. You always bring the most annoying shit to my doorstep, Reuben. Always. I didn't ask for this case, Phil. You need to plug up some of these holes before you even think about going after UTG Senator. I want you to find this trio of yours immediately. I want you to find out what happened to the Espers Powell was sending us to Community Psi. Find anyone else who's involved in that and get a watch on them right away. Got it. And look into any natural deaths of any individual related to Esplanade or Community Psi for the last 6 months or so. As soon as Richie's place is cleared, I want you there, Dahlia, to see what you can see. And I want you to head back to the Emerson place, too. See if we can confirm whether your alleyway trio was there. I understand. We need more than psychometric experiences, information from some shady guy in a shadow dome, and ill-gotten data that violates God knows how many privacy laws. Well, I get where Bill's coming from. He's the one in charge. He's the one who's got to make it look good. And he's the one who has to deal with the fallout. Well, yeah, but he still wants this to be done well. He wants to solve the case. It's just the way they've gone about it so far hasn't been the best. And we need to know who the next target is so we can get there first. We're working on it. Work harder. He was looking extremely haggard when he left. I couldn't say I blamed him. Hearing it all laid out like that made it clear how serious it was, and it made it clear how much information we lacked. We had our major players, we had dotted lines between them, but turning those into solid lines wasn't going to be easy, especially Senator Wilson. I connected the dots. You didn't connect the shit. I connected them. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It is a little annoying, his attitude, but he kind of has to be a hard ass about it. Under normal circumstances, I didn't think a consultant would be helping with the digging, but in this instance, I pitched in anyway. What I was curious about was this Aquarius project, but I had no idea how to even go about searching for that. I wasn't sure the others were either because nobody brought it up. I had a feeling we would have been at the office until midnight if not for the fact that I was there. As such, Reuben made an effort to get me home at a somewhat reasonable hour, which I thought was probably to his benefit as well. See, there is a benefit to having her along. It makes Reuben take care of himself too, under the guise of helping her. But not until after a lot of effort and distressingly little result. When we got home, it felt like we had been gone for a century, though it had just been a single work day. Reuben surprisingly didn't disappear to work in his office right away. He joined me on the sofa for a cup of tea I desperately wished would somehow relax me more than it was. I'm sorry for today, Dahlia. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Aww, cuties. I sat up, reaching to gently touch his cheek. Why are you apologizing? I'm the troublemaker. I was expecting a lecture, not an apology. I need you to stop feeling guilty over nothing. Please. He let out a soft breath and covered my hand with his own. A soft smile came to his lips as he pressed his cheek into my hand. When all this started, I had no idea it would lead to this point. Us sitting on your sofa while I caress your cheek? You sitting on my sofa caressing me, my anything. Wait, I think I need to backtrack that one. Yeah, it's a very sweet CG expressing my anything. Anything? Mm-hmm. I inched a little closer to him, then shifted my legs to drape them over his lap as I rested my elbow on the back of the sofa. He shook his head, that awkward look on his face replaced with a resigned smile. He pulled my legs into a more comfortable position, twisting to face me as well. It was a stressful day, but moments like these made it more bearable. Dahlia, look, this might be a bad time, but I think it's wise to talk about this before, before things progress much further. I know we talked about not having to rush, and this isn't me trying to do that. You realize if you weren't here, I'd still be at the office. I'd probably be there all night. Hell, you've seen how often I'm up all night, even here. Yes, anything. I have noticed that, yeah. Why? I guess I just want you to be fully aware of what you're in for with me. It can be hard to turn the mind off, especially on a case like this. No, on any case. It's hard for me to not get stuck on it. I don't want you to drag you into that. So far, you haven't. Yeah, it's always easy at the start. Always. And then it's not so easy later on when I get comfortable. I have never been able to make it work with anyone because of this. I'm worried that what I'm showing you right now isn't what you'll get later. Are you saying that later on you think you'll start neglecting me and working all the time? More than you do now? I would never intentionally ignore the needs of a partner, ever. But this is a high-stress job and I struggle with balance. We can work on balance. I worry whether you can put up with the demands this job puts on me. They will inevitably put on us. Right now, you're working with me on a case, so it's different. But when you're not, I'm just not sure I trust myself. Then trust me. I'm not a relationship expert. I've had one long-term and serious relationship that ended when he traveled to the moon and ghosted me for a year. So that's maybe not a good track record. But it's not like I have no experience with it. I've watched my parents juggle my dad's high-stress job and busy schedule too, and they make it work. You need someone who understands the occasional need for long hours and travel, which I do, and I need someone who is willing to occasionally be dragged out of his study and rest. Thanks, Jane. It feels like this is getting close to the end of the chapter, so I'm probably almost done. Are you? I always try to be, yes. Look, it may take time to work out what each person's emotional needs are and time to figure out how to meet those needs when things are hectic. But we can figure out how to do that as we go. What I'm saying is that I'm willing to do that work. I like you and I like being with you. I'm not worried about your job. The only reason I can see that wouldn't work is if I communicate my needs or concerns and you repeatedly ignore them. I'd never do that. I never tried to do that. I know. I shifted my legs off his lap and moved closer to him, capturing his face in my hands. All I need is for you to let me distract you sometimes. Wish I could let you distract me every moment of every day. I would gladly do it, maybe not every moment, but all the good ones at least. I tugged him down for a tender kiss. A trembling breath brushed my lips as he pulled me against them. I opened my mouth, letting my tongue flicker against his, and this time he let out a soft groan, hands sliding over my shoulders and down my back. Warmth spread through me, and for a moment I clung to him, realizing how much I needed him to distract me as well at the moment. It had been a long day, and I hadn't let myself think about it at all, and now I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to just drown in him for a while, as long as he'd let me. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine for a space, then kissed me again. One quick kiss followed by a longer one. Then a third, long, fiercely desperate kiss. And at last I felt the full force of his want and understood just how much he'd been holding back all this time. Our chamomile tea sat forgotten as, without warning, I found myself leaning backwards, Reuben's warm, hungry lips pressed to the underside of my jaw. Then my shoulders were pushed back against the sofa cushions, Reuben above me, his expression a wash of anguished longing. He lowered his head again, placing a kiss below my ear, then the side of my neck. My teeth flashed over my lower lip as I shut my eyes, breathing a soft sigh. One of his hands traced a path from my arm to my wrist, trailing goosebumps in its wake. Throwing my fingers through his hair as his mouth reached my collarbone, and he paused, letting his head rest against my shoulder. His breath warmed the hollow of my throat, sending tremors through me each time it brushed my skin. I should stop here, because it's going to be much harder later if I don't. Oh no, what a tragedy that would be. The noise that escaped him was somewhere between a chuckle and a very exasperated sigh. He propped himself up, a tender smile on his face as he let his fingers graze my cheek. I'm sure you don't need me badgering you with all this tonight. You had a lousy day. All the more reason to encourage you to badger me even more with all this. I like all this, I will have you know. I leaned up to press another careful kiss to his lips. The temptation to tease him further was so very strong, especially because I could tell just how easily Reuben would let himself be seduced. But there were too many anxieties behind that smile and those beautiful eyes, and he also looked really tired. So I thought maybe I should wait a little longer. Then seduce him. We could stay like this for a while anyway. I'm sure I'm heavy. Not really. He pulled him back to me, wrapping my arms around him as he wedged himself between me and the back of the sofa somehow. It was nice, and for the first time all day, things finally felt right. I hoped he felt the same way. Everything else was pushed aside for at least a little while. And his face was the last thing in my mind when I drifted off to sleep. Yay! Okay. Alright, that's it for today. So, another picture to add to the gallery. They're so cute together. Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to do anything on Wednesday, but definitely a week from tomorrow. So, yeah. So thank you for joining me for this unexpected stream. It'll go up on YouTube. I'm not sure when. So yeah. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you're on YouTube. Bye!